Hello there, good evening and welcome to Lincoln City's pre-match show Matchday Live. The Imps travelling to the Gillingham Stadium to face Oxford United, knowing that a win tonight would take us up to third place in the League One table and just 1 point behind second place, Peterborough United as well. So lots to play for this evening and lots to talk about on tonight's show as well. We'll have the all-important team news for you coming up at 6:45 this evening. It could make for interesting reading. We'll also be speaking to club legend Tony Lawmer as well. He'll be joining us in around about 20 minutes or so as well. So do get your questions in for Tony. And of course, we'll be looking back on that draw against Sunderland last week as well. Let's bring Gary Hutchinson into the fold then. And Gary, the Imps have had nearly a week off. We don't say that too often, do we? Certainly not this season anyway.
No, I think it's been 8 consecutive Tuesdays, so they haven't had a full week off in an awfully long while. Hopefully it will have given some of the players a chance to recharge their batteries. I'm not talking about the injured players, just talking about the players that are turning out 90 minutes every 3-4 days. Your Teo Edens, and obviously Lewis Monsmers and players like that. So hopefully it will have been a good opportunity. Plenty of time to study Oxford, plenty of time to look at their patterns of play, and hopefully that'll stand us in good stead for what is a really important game tonight.
It certainly is. And the national TV cameras are down at the Gillingham Stadium as well. Of course, we're on Sky Sports when the Imps played Gillingham. Hopefully, Gary, it'll be a similar result as well.
Yeah, that would be really nice, wouldn't it? Look, I'd certainly give for a similar performance. I know we're looking at Sunderland very soon, but I think it's nice just to move away from what have been some pretty tough evenings watching Lincoln City. So, yeah, I'd certainly give for a return to the Gillingham game, no doubt at all.
Friday night kickoff as well, Gary, and I mentioned it before that, a win tonight, the table certainly at the end of this evening would look pretty nice, wouldn't it? I guess, is that an advantage playing early?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not if you lose, obviously, because then you're worried on the Saturday. But I think it gives you an opportunity to make a point. And when you get into these sort of 10, 9, 8, 7 games left at the end of the season, every little advantage matters. So if we were to go out tonight and win, certainly I think that it would put Oxford out of reach. So we would open up a huge gap between us and them. But it would also say to Blackpool and Peterborough and Doncaster and Portsmouth, right, you go and match our result. Because I guarantee you not all 3 of them would. And I think then in that instance, you've got a psychological advantage in the race to the finish line.
Let's talk about injuries then, that dreaded term, Gary. No Joe Walsh, no George Grant, no Tom Hopper, no Brennan Johnson as well, as, of course, on international duty this weekend as well. How do the Imps go about navigating through that then? Because they're going to have to show a lot of fight once again, I guess.
Yeah, with great difficulty is the honest answer. Adam Jackson, Max Sanders, I think, also ruled out tonight. So it's a very large portion of the squad. Unfortunately, you have to get on with it. That's all there is to it. The matches don't move for injuries. We've still got a very good starting 11. When you talk about the players that are out, you only have to look at the ones that are actually left and think that's actually decent. You've got a £4 million player in Morgan Rogers. You've got Liam Bridcut, who's played in the top level. Lewis Monsmer, who was everybody's hero at the beginning of the season. So we've still got a decent 11. You just have to keep going. And I think the lads have shown great commitment. I think they've shown great attitude through what has been a really tough time since January. I mean, I crunched some numbers over the week, and I think we've only been able to field what would be classed as a full strength starting 11 in 16% of our games this season. To think that on that, we're 4th in the table is utterly phenomenal.
Well, it is utterly phenomenal, isn't it? It's a great point you raised, Gary, as well. And how much credit to Michael do we have to give then? Of course, Oxford United fans certainly know Michael well, don't they? And they're always quick to praise the job that he did there. But when you state those figures and we look at the amount of Saturday, Tuesday games that we've played so far this season, such a young squad as well, it is quite something.
Yeah, it is. And I think also you look at the way Michael manages the team, the way he manages his press conferences. There's no wallowing, there's no self-pity, there's no, well, we've got these injuries or that sort of thing. Yes, he mentions them, he has to, that's his role as manager. But you never see anybody hiding behind excuses, and I think that's really important. We have got a young, eager set of lads. They're the ones that win the matches. They're the ones that go out there and put in the performances. Michael and David Kerslake and the rest of the coaching staff can only prepare them for so much and so long. So, yeah, of course, credit to Mike Clapton, credit to the the coaching staff, but also the players that have shouldered the responsibility. And there's one or two, who have come through probably tough periods. Like Conor McGrandles came back from injury. He's been utterly sensational. Theo Eden has played in, it feels like, every position on the field. You've had Callum Morton, who's been out for so many months, come in and scored vital goals. So, I think we've got some really good characters, some good people in and around the squad. Mix that with a very talented manager, and you get an answer to the question, why are we doing so well with so many injuries?
Let's have a look back on that draw against Sunderland then at the Stadium of Light, Gary. We saw it obviously on Matchday Live before the game, and it looked to be a really tough game, didn't it? Were you expecting more from Sunderland, first of all?
No, I was expecting less from us, and I don't mean that to sound particularly derogatory, but I think we've been on a very poor run. Let's be brutally honest. Sunderland have been on a phenomenal run. They've got great players. I know that they had injuries. I expected them to do what they did. They maintained possession. They came out as early. They tried to get McGeady into the game, but we managed it very, very well. Regan Poole managed McGeady excellently. And anybody that tells me that Regan Poole was not a contender for man of the match on Saturday is wrong. He was outstanding. So, no, I expected less from us. And I thought the way that we went there and the way that we applied ourselves looked like the Lincoln City from the end of January, not the Lincoln City that we've seen through February. Just a shame that there was a minor switch off there, which cost us a goal. But, it's been the case, unfortunately, recently.
Yeah, and a team like Sunderland going to a stadium like the Stadium of Light as well, in the form that they're in, it would have been easy to settle, wouldn't it? But actually, if anyone, it looked like us that we're going to find the winner towards the end of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we weathered a storm, and you saw there, Alex Palmer had to beat away a free kick, which would have been 2-0 and game over. But we stayed on our game, and I thought we were the ones likely to win it. I mean, Cohen Bramall here, really unlucky. And if my dad's watching, I hope that he sees there that there were two defenders blocking the angle. That is not an open goal. He's put the ball in the only place that he can. I thought, I use this word lightly. I don't use this word lightly, rather. I actually thought that we were excellent, considering our injury position, considering where we were and who we were against. We deserved to win the game in the final stages. And what's heartening is we created good, clear-cut chances as well. They weren't punts from sort of 20, 25 yards looking for Morgan Rogers magic. There were good chances from inside the area for different players, and that's really important.
In terms of tonight's team news then, Gary, I know you do your pre-match predictions as ever in terms of the team news, but in terms of the front three, what are you expecting this evening?
Well, I think there's one question mark, isn't there? I think Morgan Rogers starts on the left. I don't think that's a doubt. Callum Morton starts through the centre. He's the only real option. I mean, Anthony Scully can play through there. We've not seen him through there as yet this season, I don't think. So I think Morton probably plays. And then on the right-hand side, it is a toss-up between Scully and Harry Anderson. It's hard to predict. Anthony Scully pops up with goals. He's got 12, I think, this season. So he's a goal scorer, more from open play than anybody else in our squad. But Harry Anderson, I think the scene's set for Harry. He is the record appearance holder from the current squad, obviously, longest serving player. The scene is set. He had such a great early season. He could come in and be a major difference over the next 10 games. I think Harry starts over Anthony Scully.
How much have we missed Harry, Gary? Because he got off to some start, and we're going to be having a look back at the Oxford United highlights from the first game of the season later on in the show. He was one of the standout men then, and then it's just, whether it's COVID, whether it's injuries, it's just not quite fallen for him at the times that you'd normally hope that it would fall for a player like Harry, I guess.
Yeah, we've missed the option, I think. At times, there are certain teams that when you go up against, and perhaps having Brennan Johnson and Morgan Rogers in the same team doesn't work. They're both players that love to get on the ball, attack their fullbacks. When I say luxury players, I don't mean players that you can afford not to have, but they're both really quite flair players. Sometimes you need, sounds wrong, but a pedestrian winger, the sort of winger that will just work up and down, pick up the ball, bully the fullback. And that's Harry Anderson. He's such a grafter. So we've missed him in terms of flexibility on the right-hand side. It's hard to say how much we've missed him in terms of results. I think certainly a fully fit Harry Anderson over the last few weeks would have got game time. How effective he would have been, who knows? But it'll be nice to see him back in and around the squad evening, without a doubt.
And of course, your dad is watching, Gary. He's always watching Matchday Live.
He is always watching Matchday Live, yeah, and he always pulls me up on things that I've said as well. So Cohen Bramall hit that as sweet as he possibly could. I'm not hearing anything else.
He certainly did. Just on Cohen, because I thought he played well, and I think he's really sort of settling into his position now. There's an argument that when new players come in and a team is doing so well and they have a certain style of play, it's going to take a little bit of time to bed in, and perhaps Cohen's style is slightly different to the style of play that we saw at the start of this season. But now he seems to be a real feature of this side.
Yeah, he does, absolutely. Look, let's not take away the role that Liam Bridcut plays in that. Because I think when you're a rampaging fullback, which Bramall is, he likes to get forward. He's got lots and lots of pace, but often that takes him up the field very quickly. And if we lose possession and if the opposition come back at us, there can be a gap there. Now, your central defensive midfielder has at that point got to have the intelligence to drop in and fill that position. If a centre back does it, there's a space in the middle, and Liam Bridcut does that very well. So that's what I think. That's why I think Bramall's improved.
Great stuff, Gary. Thanks very much. Team news coming for you live at 6:45 this evening. So in around about 3 or 4 minutes time. In the meantime, delighted to say that Tony Lawmer joins us now. Tony, lovely to see you. Firstly, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm all right. So
great
still alive.
Well, look, Tony, it's been quite a story, hasn't it? Could you tell us a little bit about it, and then tell us a bit about your charity as well, because it is quite something.
Yes, certainly. First got diagnosed with lymphoma 7 years ago. But it really all sort of kicked off about 2 years ago. Got to a point where I was very, very, very ill with it. I eventually had to go through a stem cell transplant. They couldn't find I had about 4 or 5 months of chemo. I couldn't find a chemo that would keep it under control. I had a stem cell transplant in Sheffield, which worked to a certain extent, and I needed more radiotherapy, and it all got a bit serious in Sheffield. Maybe 14, 15 months ago, I got told I had less than 12 months to live, and so it was a tough time, really. But I think a lot of what got me through helped from the footballing days, to be honest. And I had a never give in attitude, and I was stubborn, and I wanted to win. I turned it into a challenge, and on the back of that, I was just so fortunate to get through everything. I just felt I was given a chance to do something, and I really wanted to turn that into a positive, and wanted to help as many people as I possibly could, because there's times going through cancer treatment. It's obviously it's difficult and experience. Sometimes the waiting is just as bad as having the treatment. So I just wanted to set something up which sort of reached out to people and just said, look, if anybody's struggling or anybody wants to chat, give me a call. I sort of did it properly. I sort of did it through I've done it through as a non-for-profit organization. I've got a website, which obviously, there's a helpline number on there. And there's times when you sat at home when you've probably been diagnosed in treatment, there's probably a 3 or 4 week gap, and you just sat at home bouncing off the walls. And I just really wanted to say to anybody, if you're in that position, give us a call. We can have a chat. I'm not an expert, but I've been through quite a lot, so I can share some of the things I went through. And if I get to a point where I don't know the answer, then I will send the people down the path of the experts and where they need to and who they need to speak to for proper advice. But I just wanted to be sort of like somebody that reached out and wanted to help as many people as I possibly could.
Tony, the comments are absolutely flying in already. Julie says, inspired by this fella. Malcolm says, the Stormer Lawmer as well, one of the few Imps scored 4 goals in one game. Chris Daines concurs as well. Tony Lawmer, 4-goal hero, my first ever match at Sincil Bank versus Carlisle.
Oh, wow.
I presume you can remember it.
I remember it very well. I only scored 2 hat-tricks in my life in my football league pro career, and they were both for Lincoln. So I got 3 against Scunthorpe and a 4-2 win. And then I got 4 against Carlisle. I think we won 6-2 in the final game of the season. So, I remember them very well, to be honest.
Let's bring Gary Hutchinson in, because Gary, before we even let Gary speak, I just want to show you a photo, Tony. I don't know if you can remember this.
Oh,
Now
my word.
that is a young Gary Hutchinson rocking the curtains once again. Gary, you're right to reply.
Do you know what? I'm absolutely stoked, Tony. You're genuinely one of my first heroes.
Brilliant.
That was a presentation evening for Rugby Boys at Rugby Town
Brilliant.
Hall. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, you're an inspiration to so many, utterly phenomenal, and both for what you did on the football pitch and post-football as well. I mean, what do you remember from those early days coming into Lincoln working under Colin Murphy?
Well, it's funny because I was 19. I was quite comfortable living at home with my mum and that. One of the real reasons I signed for Lincoln was a guy called John Pickering. He was coach at Lincoln at the time, and he was my youth team coach at Newcastle and first team coach. He rang me up and said, "Do you fancy coming down working together?" So I said, "God, yeah." I said, "Yeah." I jumped at the chance. Really, I just wanted to be playing games. So the first person I met was Colin Murphy. Got me to sign a blank contract. And then I remember, I think it was a Tuesday. I turned up Wednesday, said, "Come along for 1 o'clock." I played in the reserves against Scarborough. And then I made my debut on the Saturday against Wrexham. So, yeah, I just wanted to be playing football. I was at a stage in my career where I had a little bit of success at Newcastle and I still had a bit of an ego and I didn't want to play for the reserves. So it got me a bit of limelight. I thoroughly enjoyed all my time at Lincoln. I've had probably about 18 months where, I scored a few goals and then sort of injuries started. I started picking up injuries and then obviously I had the massive knee injury, which ultimately should have finished my career, to be honest. But Lincoln itself, I mean, I lived in Lincoln for 12 years. When I played for the other clubs, I was very settled. I lived in Skellinthorpe. So, yeah, we were settled and I really enjoyed the city, to be honest. It was and it was a complete contrast from Newcastle, the bright lights to a certain extent, to quite a sleepy town. And it was probably just what I needed because I could just focus on playing football.
Tony, we're absolutely loving having you on Matchday Live this evening. Stay with us if you can. In the meantime, I just want to read out the Lincoln City team news because, of course, it is a pre-match show and we've got the game against Oxford United coming up. So we're going to come back to you very shortly. Appreciate you having the time. This is the Lincoln City starting 11 to face Oxford United this evening. Palmer, Poole, Ioma, Monsma, Bramall, Bridcut, the captain, McGrandles, Eden, Rogers, Anderson and Scully, Long, Jones, Archibald, Howarth and Rowan. So you'll note, Lincoln City fans, that there's no Callum Morton this evening. We'll have possibly more on why Callum's not involved later on in the show. But just to reiterate, it's Alex Palmer, Regan Poole, TJ Omer and Lewis Monsma, the centre-back pairing, Cohen Bramall at left-back, Liam Bridcut's your captain this evening. It is then Conor McGrandles, Teo Eden, Morgan Rogers, Harry Anderson, and Anthony Scully as well. Long, Jones, Archibald, Howarth, and Sean Rowan on the bench as well. I'll get Gary's reaction to that very shortly. But Tony, just going back to yourself, they're really interesting to hear you regaling a couple of stories there and telling us about your time living in Skellingthorpe as well. So obviously it's a city, obvious question as it is, that's close to your heart. Yeah,
like you say, it was my home for 12 years. Like you say, I really, really enjoyed my time. Apologies now, I had to wear glasses. I couldn't see a thing before. And then, so, yes, the city is really close to my heart. My first wife and my daughter, they still live in Hykeham, North Hykeham. So there's still an attachment to the city. I am part of the former players club. So I have been back a few times for to see a few games and that. So when it all gets up and running again and we're allowed to come and see matches, and I'd definitely like to get across.
Absolutely. We'd be delighted to have you. I'm sure Gary Hutchinson's got another question for you as well, Tony. Gary.
Yes. Yeah.
First of all, will you sign that photo when you come back up? Because that would be a cracking story. Secondly, as well, obviously, you were later in your career, I think you were part of the Chesterfield squad, made it to the FA Cup semi-final. If I remember, you played up until about the third round as well. What was that like? That must have been some journey for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you got better memory than me. I was involved in the first 3 rounds, I think, and then I got injured. I think for the Forest match, which obviously was a big match. it's weird. You talk about momentum, and one of the things, obviously, you look at how well Lincoln have done this year. And momentum's a massive thing, and you get on it. It's a great thing, and if you look at Lincoln, they probably haven't got the momentum at the minute, but it just rolls on and on and on. And with the FA Cup run, we blinked and we were playing Wrexham in the quarterfinals. Then all of a sudden you think we are one step away from the semi-finals of the FA Cup, as were Wrexham, Yeah, so as a footballer, you play Saturday, Tuesday, and games just come along, you train, and then you play, and then that's sort of how it happened. We blinked and we were in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. Unfortunately, I missed. I wasn't fit for that. I got injured in the reserve game leading up to that. But I think the whole experience, the game at Old Trafford was something I'll never forget. And then I wasn't involved in it at all. The game, the replay Sheffield Wednesday, was a bit of an anti-climax, but it was just a fantastic experience, to be honest. I mean, that'll never happen to me again, or never did happen to me again. So you just savor those moments when they come along.
Tony, as I said, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on tonight's Matchday Live. Just finally, it's timely that you're on this evening as well, because it is Blood Cancer Awareness Month as well. Where can people watching this find both yourself online as well, and where can they help the cause? Well,
I've set up a website. I've set up what's called it's a community interest company. So the website is Brightside, and it's BRITESIDE.CIC.org. If you go on there, all the information's on there. You can click on. There's a helpline. I think the biggest thing as well is it's around people affected by cancer. The one thing I noticed was, through my experience, was as a person going through, or patient, it's easy. It was easy for me, but everybody else, your family and your partners and your friends, they're just as affected as you are, really, or even more, and there's very little support from them. So what I want to do is help anybody that's affected by cancer. It doesn't have to be lymphoma, or you don't have to be the patient. Just pick up the phone and we can have a chat. So yeah, get in touch. I'm here to help. So that's what I want to do.
Tony, it's an amazing cause. Congratulations. And again, thanks very much for joining us. The response has been fantastic as well. Just finally, score prediction this evening. I presume you're watching the game on Sky?
Yes, I will do. I seen Oxford themselves. I seen they've had a massive run, about 7 or 8 on the spin, and then they've lost a few. Lincoln seem to have picked up like the 1-0 or 2-0 away from home. So I will go for a Lincoln City win of 1-0.
There you go. Love it. You'll be even more popular with the Lincoln City fans. Tony, really appreciate having you on the show tonight.
No worries. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on.
It's been a pleasure.
Tony.
Take care. Thank you.
Brilliant to have Tony Lawmer on there. What a guy. Gary, brilliant stuff, wasn't it? I'm going to have to go straight into the team news, because we're absolutely racing through the show. And one of the big ones, well, 2 big pieces of news. Firstly, Harry Anderson back in the starting 11 this evening. We chatted about him slightly before, but it's a big one having him in, and judging by the comments as well, people delighted to see him back.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's enforced or not, we won't know. We won't know what Michael would have gone with, but it's massive to have Harry back in. He's got goals in him. He can pop up at the back stick with a header. He's done that on a few occasions. He's quite a powerful winger. He'll certainly ask good questions of his fullback, and when he's got Regan Poole as well backing him up, that's going to be interesting dynamic. Probably the first game they've played together. So yeah, we shall see how that goes, but it's a positive to get any of the injured players back, without doubt.
No Callum Morton this evening as well, guys. Such a shame after such a fine performance and fine individual goal against Sunderland last week.
Yep, Callum Morton strikes me as a player who can do, with the greatest respect, very little for 40 minutes and then pop up with a goal. And they're probably the best type of strikers. They're the ones that get 20 or 25. There was some calls early in the Sunderland game, people saying, where's Morton? What's he doing? But that's what he does. He's a sniffer. He sniffs out the chances. So he will be a big loss. Really interesting opportunity for Anthony Scully. He's got 12 goals playing anywhere across the front. But this is the position I understand that he likes to play. He wants to play through the centre. Big night for him. Huge night. He scored the first goal of our league season against Oxford. It'd be great for him to get on the score sheet again this evening.
Certainly would. Let's get the pre-match thoughts of the manager then. Michael Appleton, this is what he had to say giving his pre-match press conference yesterday. He was asked about some returning players. Here he is.
Yeah, it's certainly, it's up for grabs. Obviously, we've got Harry coming back, who hasn't sort of featured for a while, certainly in the first team. Remy, another one, been on the bench recently. But obviously, Scully came on against Sunderland on Saturday. And, listen, I thought he performed pretty well, to be fair to him. I think it was his best performance for a while coming off the bench. He gave it a bit of energy. Because I think it was one of them where, certainly Brennan's played a hell of a lot of games since he's come to the football club, and it's his first loan, and he looked a little bit tired on Saturday, and obviously I think the actual break that he'll get in terms of being away with the international squad will probably do him the world of good.
We've not seen much of Max Sanders recently. How's he doing? Is he over his hamstring issue?
Well, he's not trained for a while, no. I mean, he's still with the medical team at the minute. We're hoping he'll be with us possibly Monday, if not Tuesday, which could make him available for the MK Don game next week. But yeah, he's another one that I'm sure when he gets the opportunity to get at least 2 weeks of solid training, he'll be chomping at the bit to be back involved.
And just finally for me, what do you make of Oxford? Obviously, they've had a game this week. Could that have a bearing on things?
Possibly. I've seen that Carl made a few changes. So I do expect a few changes from the side that played Northampton on Tuesday to play against us tomorrow night. We've obviously got a good squad, a strong squad. Been in and around it for the last couple of seasons. So, and obviously up until maybe the last 4 or 5 games, we were on a real strong run. And I know they've had a couple of defeats of late, but there's certainly a talented side with match winners in the team. The likes of Winall and Taylor up top. They need to be dealt with, and they've got some good midfield players in the likes of Brannigan and Goring. So we're aware of their strengths, and it's going to be a difficult game. But I think there's not one of the remaining 10 games that's not going to be difficult. And I think you've seen in the results over the last probably 6 or 7 weeks, there isn't a gimme in this league.
Yeah, Michael Appleton giving his pre-match thoughts there. We're going to be speaking to an Oxford United fan and journalist as well, Cy Watts, very shortly. So we'll talk a little bit more about Oxford in depth later. But Gary, really interesting what Michael was saying there about Oxford's form. Of course, the way we look at Oxford are a team that are on a great run, but actually, of course, they have lost 2 games in a row. Carl Robinson, being the manager he is, absolutely won't want to lose 3, will he?
No, we won't. They've not actually been on a good run probably since late February, early March time. I think they beat Doncaster 3-0, but they've struggled for goals for some reason. And with Matty Taylor and Sam Winall up front, you would wonder why. But they've got some really good players. I like Rob Atkinson, the central defender. I think Michael had a sniff around him when he was available and when Michael first came to the club, but we missed out on him. He's going to be a big star. They've got Sam Long at fullback as well, not to be confused with our keeper Sam Long. He's another really good player. Look, Oxford United are not far away from being a top 7 side or top 6 side in this division. And if they don't make the playoffs, they will be fighting for it next season.
Let me just run you through Michael Appleton's starting 11 then this evening for the Imps side that are taking on Oxford United. Alex Palmer in goal, Regan Poole, TJ Omer, Lewis Monsman, Cohen Bramall. They make up the back 4. Liam Bridcut's back in. He's captain this evening. He's alongside Conor McGrandles and Teo Eden. It is then Morgan Rogers, Harry Anderson and Anthony Scully as well. Long, Jones, Archibald, Howarth and Rowan on the bench too. Just a word on Liam Bridcut, Gary. I know he's one of a lot of people's favourite players. He's certainly one of your favourite players, isn't he? He was excellent, wasn't he, the other day against Sunderland? How important is it that he gets a bit of regular game time to get the momentum going?
Beyond important, it's imperative. Liam Bridcut is the heartbeat of the team. Yeah, I wax lyrical about him all the time because he's a functional part of the team. Often those sorts of players are described as the ones that do the dirty work, don't get seen. But the way Liam Bridcut does it, he does get seen because he starts the moves off. When we play out from the back, he's there in the centre. And when he doesn't play, we're a weaker side. He protects the back 2, the central defensive pairing. That's going to be important tonight because it's a fresh pairing with Ioma and and Monsma, a big night for TJ. But with Liam protecting him and helping to dictate where he should be. And you know, that's no disrespect to TJ. He's a clever player, of course, but Liam Bridcut's experience is imperative to the back four and to starting our attacks. I can't speak highly enough of him in terms of our chances over the next 10 games.
Absolutely. So, right, let's get the pre-match thoughts of Teo Eden then. He was asked about positioning. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, it's big. I think the situation that the team's going through in terms of injuries and having to switch up every now and again, some cases of COVID, going to be needed throughout the team, a bit of versatility, and I'm happy that I was getting the trust from the manager to play a different position.
And how did that role against Sunderland suit you? Because as you say, we've not seen a lot of you going forward in terms of from the midfield area.
I think it just gave me a bit more freedom, having Bridcut sort of sitting behind me and Connor, just a bit more freedom to go forward and maybe take more risks with the ball and with runs in behind and stuff like that.
It's been a season where you've got a lot of football, more football than you've had in your career. How much do you feel you're benefiting from that?
Obviously, just being able to enjoy football. You perform better naturally, getting the games and you build experience and it just lets you go out there and just express yourself more.
And you played at this level before, but having that another season now with this under your belt, are you finding that League One life is easier than you thought or more difficult than you thought?
Definitely something that I'm capable of doing. I wouldn't say easy or hard. I don't know what I'll put it down to, but I'd say as I get the games in, it's something that I'm more and more comfortable with, and I feel like I'm ready for a new challenge.
And we're heading into the final run-in now. It's a busy load of games coming up once again after we get past this week. Are you looking forward to that, to heading towards the end now with a lot to play for?
Yeah, of course. We've given ourselves a great chance this season. Obviously, the start that we had, we're coming off the back of a spell that wasn't so good. But I guess the performance against Sunderland has showed that we still got more in us. And if we take that sort of form into our next few games, it's going to be exciting into the season.
Yeah, Teo Eden giving his pre-match thoughts to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Rob Makepeace there. Gary, let's have a quick chat about Teo then, because, you know, I mentioned it was an excellent performance from Liam Bridcut the other day. It was certainly an excellent performance from Teo, wasn't it? And he seems to really enjoy that central attacking midfield role. Yeah,
he does. I think I said before the game, I really wanted to see him play in that 8 role, a little bit more advanced. I think he's a very cultured midfielder. He's very good on the ball. He's got great technique. He can pick a pass. He does like to take a little bit of time on the ball. And I think if you're playing in the central defensive midfield role, you probably don't have as much time, which is why we had a few hearts in mouth moment as he tried to kind of dribble his way out of trouble and succeeded, to be fair, in the games where he played the holding role. But I like him when he's got that little bit more freedom, when he knows he's got the protection of Liam Bridcut or another 6 behind him, because he can begin to express himself more. He's proved himself to be adaptable on the flank as well. So again, I think he's a player who's going to have a big future with us. And I think of all the young players that we've had brought in, he's the one that's developing at a really quite impressively alarming rate.
Left-footed as well, Gary. You know, a player like that, in that sort of position, you often, of course, as obvious as it sounds, there's more right-footers than there are left-footers throughout, you know, Premier League, League One, Championship football, whatever. But actually, again, it offers something different, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I mean, it'll offer a certain amount of balance in terms of positioning as well. And I think, managers like to have they would like to have an equal split of left and right footers if they could, because it's natural. I think, we picked up on Lewis Monsma's tackle the other week, for instance, where he went for a tackle with his right foot when the player was running in the channel. And if he was left footed, he would probably have stopped the opening goal against whoever it was, Gillingham, I think. So, it does, it's certainly an attribute that it's nice to have in and around the squad, a natural left footer. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's been flexible, because he can play at left back. He is a natural left footer, and so he's developed a kind of that role for himself. I see him as a central midfielder, and I think that a couple more games in that position, and a lot of other fans will join me in thinking the same.
Let's have a look at let's have a look at the League One table, I should say, and then we'll talk about some upcoming fixtures, Gary. Because as I mentioned before, look, a win tonight, of course, would take the Imps into the top 3, just a point behind Peterborough as well. But in terms of some of these fixtures tomorrow, let's start with Hull versus Gillingham, because Gillingham, we know what sort of form that they're in at the moment. Can they get anything away at Hull?
Yes, they can. They're a strong side. They're an organised side. They're good at what they do, which is a compliment. They can get something there. I think it'll be a very tough game for Hull. I get the impression that Hull are the sort of side that probably don't stand up to Gillingham's style of play quite as much. We talk about direct, and let's not talk about that in derogatory terms. It helped get us out of League Two. So I think they can get something. It's a really interesting tie. Hull need a little bit of just a little bit of a boost, I think, at the moment. They're not particularly flagging, but Sunderland are on their heels. They may get complacent with Peterborough's relatively poor run of form. If they weren't to take all 3 points rather from that game, I think that would give us a big impetus, especially if we had picked up 3 this evening.
Blackpool versus Plymouth. Blackpool are on quite the run, aren't they? And they could certainly sneak into the playoffs. The way they're going, they're not even ruling out automatic promotion.
No, they'll be in the top 6 without a doubt. I've said it since the beginning of the season. I stick by that. I think Neil Critchley is a good coach. It's taken him a time to find his rhythm there, and taken time for 1 or 2 of the players to find their rhythm. Jerry Yates is a great forward at this level. He's doing very, very well for them now. I understand that they're playing scintillating football was one word that I heard to describe their win against Peterborough the other night. So I've no doubt whatsoever they'll be in the top 6. Think the top 2 might be a little bit of a stretch for them. I'll tell you something, they're the team that you watch out for in the playoffs, because they'll go into these last 10 games with all of the momentum. They'll be really, really dangerous.
Good stuff, Gary. Right, let's have a look at what happened when the 2 sides met all the way back at the first game of this season at the LNER Stadium. It was a good day for the Imps, wasn't it? In a sunny LNER as well. This is what happened.
Words in my mouth are stuck and it's hard to breathe. The only way out is one of us has to leave. The things I say, the things I do, I don't believe. And in my mind's eye, I see the things I want to say. Baby, don't go away.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't mind seeing another Harry Anderson run like that for sure. Right. Delighted to say now that Oxford United fan and journalist as well, Cy Watts, joins us. Cy, lovely to see you. We won't make you relive what we've just shown you there, but just talk us about tonight's game. Tell us what you expect from an Oxford United perspective, if you could.
I wish I knew what to expect from Oxford United, because 10 days ago we probably put in our best performance of the season. We beat Doncaster 3-0. Our record until then had been pretty poor against teams in the top 8. I think that was our first victory against any of them this season. But then, after that defeat against Blackpool on Saturday and then losing at Northampton on Tuesday night, where I think Carl Robinson tried to rest 1 or 2 players in preparation for this game, and it backfired a little bit. So, the pressure's really on Oxford tonight, because, if we don't get the result in this one, then, we really are going to fall behind the chasing pack. And there are other teams who are in very good form around us in the table, as you well know. So, this is a really big game for Oxford as well as Lincoln.
What about your starting 11 this evening then, Si? Have you had a chance to look at it? Here it is. What have you made of it?
Yeah, I mean, really disappointing that Alex Gorin doesn't make it. He's got a bit of a minor knock, and he's a really important player. And actually, when you look at that, I think back to that game that we won 6-0 at your place about 18 months or so ago, and only 2 of the starting 11 tonight featured in that game, Josh Ruffles and Cameron Brannigan. One to keep an eye out for is definitely Brandon Barker. I think he could be the match winner of any, because we've got him on loan from Rangers. He's a really quick, skillful winger. Mide Shadipo as well blows a bit hot and cold, but he scored into double figures from the wing this season too. And then Matty Taylor up front. The goals have dried up a little bit, but he scored a couple against Doncaster, as I said, that game 10 days ago. But he was rested. He was one of those who was rested against Northampton on Tuesday night. So I think we're expecting a performance from him tonight to really justify leaving him out on Tuesday.
I think Gary Hutchinson has got a question for you, Si, if we bring Gary into the fold.
It's Mark Sykes is playing tonight. Now, he was one of the players that came over from Ireland, I think, a little bit after Gavin White did as well. He was always one I thought was going to kick on and do really well. How's he done for you this season, and is he a danger man?
On his day, definitely, he's a danger man. He doesn't quite score enough goals probably to justify being a game-changing player in that starting lineup, but he's featured more heavily in the last 2 months or so. He was dropped after we lost at home to Swindon, which is a big local derby for Oxford. And since then, 1 or 2 players have disappeared off the face of the earth, really, including our goalkeeper, Simon Eastwood. So, he had to work hard to get his place back in the team, on his day. And I think this is probably what sums up why Oxford aren't in the top 6. On their day, players like Mark Sykes look among the best in the league, but you can't always rely on them giving you that sort of 7, 8 out of 10 performance, really. So I'm not quite sure which Mark Sykes will turn up tonight.
Now, Lincoln City fans, if you're watching at home and you're wondering where that voice is coming from, Si is one of the voices of the IMG EFL on Quest show. So, Si, you've had a good opportunity to watch the Imps a fair few times this season. I know you're a huge Michael Appleton fan as well. What have you made of us?
Really impressed this season. I mean, I remember, Sam, when we were at work chatting to you last season, when obviously Michael Appleton came in and he was going through exactly the same process he's done with Lincoln, he did with Oxford, where, you needed that first 6 to 8 months where it was a little bit up and down as he put together, a younger squad built in the mould that, he does. And, well, from what I've seen from the outside looking in, I know you've had, a few inconsistent results recently, but, it's really having an impact on the team. I love George Grant. I don't know, is he playing tonight? I know there's a bit of an injury doubt, but he's one.
Yeah, he's not in tonight. I'll tell you what, Si, whilst you're there, if people are just joining us now, we'll bring in the Lincoln City starting 11 as well, and you can cast your eye over this, because it's Alex Palmer, Regan Poole, TJ Omer and Lewis Monsmer, the centre-back pairing this evening, Cohen Bramall at left-back, Liam Bridcut, the captain, so no George Grant that you alluded to there. And then it's Conor McGrandles, Teo Eden, Morgan Rogers, Harry Anderson and Anthony Scully, Long, Jones, Archibald, Howarth and Rowan. So from your perspective, Si, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, Rogers is a player that I think has got frightening ability from the games I've seen. I mean, I've only seen a lot of highlights of Lincoln, so I've not watched whole 90 minutes. But whenever I seem to see Lincoln and he's playing, Morgan Rogers seems to be involved at the minute as well. So you've got some dangerous players, haven't you? And I think, hopefully, I've got to be honest, we don't play particularly well on Sky. We've got a pretty bad record on TV. So, hopefully it'll be a decent game of football, because they're 2 managers who've got very similar styles and philosophies of the game. But I hope it sort of pans out that way.
Si, lovely to have you on the show. Are you working tomorrow evening? Do you know who you're covering?
I am, mate. Yeah, they've not given me the Oxford game, so that's probably a good thing, because if we lose, it's pretty horrible summing up your team. But yeah, I'm back in the studio on the show tomorrow, and there should be quite longer highlights tomorrow, actually, because only League 1 and League 2, obviously.
There you go. EFL on Quest, 9 p.m. tomorrow, isn't that, I presume?
Yes, it is. Yeah, 9 o'clock tomorrow night.
There you go. I'm sure plenty of Lincoln fans will be tuning in. No doubt about that. Si, really appreciate having you on the show this evening.
No worries, mate. Always a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Thanks,
fellas. Oxford United fan as well. And hopefully he's right that Oxford have another bad night on Sky Sports this evening. Fingers crossed. Anyway, Gary, we've got about a couple of minutes left on the show this evening. A few people asking for your score predictions as well. So tell us what you think.
That's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Now I thought I wasn't going to ask score. You weren't going to ask me score predictions anymore. I'm confident that we can get a point. I don't think that we'll win the game. I think the first goal is absolutely crucial. Oxford don't lose many if they score the first goal. We don't win many if we concede the first goal. So I think if we can get in there early, get a goal, give us something to defend, then we can potentially take 3 points. But I'm going for 1-1.
1-1. Sorry, Gary, I dropped you right in it there. Nothing changes, does it? Gary, really appreciate having you on the show tonight.
Thank you, mate. Always good to be here.
Lovely to get the thoughts of Gary Hutchinson as well. We've absolutely flown through tonight's show, haven't we? Really appreciated your time this evening. Wherever you're watching the game this evening, do enjoy it, and fingers crossed the Imps can get 3 points. Take care.